It's nice to hear from you today. Oh, awesome. I can hear you out in the background. My name is Ranger Ruben, and right now I'm coming to you all live from underwater in Anacapa Landing Cove. But even though I'm underwater here in Channel Islands National Park, and you're on the mainland in Santa Barbara at the Sea Center and at the Visitor Center in Ventura Harbor, I can still hear you and you can see and hear me. So even though I'm inside of an underwater forest in a national park, we are still connected. And to prove this connection, I'd like to hear from all of you today. So our friend, a marine ecologist, a scientist at the park named Scotty, is helping us out to conduct this program. He's broadcasting right now. So on the count of three, if all of the kids at the Sea Center and all of our audience at headquarters for the park in Ventura can say, thank you, Scotty. Demonstrate that connection. Oh, awesome. Yeah, I heard you loud and clear. Another way that we're showing our connection between the mainland and our kelp forest environment. And one other way that we are connected to you today is that I'm joined by my friend Claire. Claire works for NOAA, the Channel Islands National Marine Sanctuary. So the marine reserve and the ocean environment that we're in today are co-managed by both the Park Service and the sanctuary. So together, we are connected in managing and stewarding these ocean environments. Awesome to have Claire out here today. You might just see her another couple of times on this broadcast too, when she finds other friends for us to talk about. And today, while we are connected together, we're also going to talk about how this incredible ecosystem, this underwater forest, is connected to all of us too. Because even though I'm underwater, I'm still swimming in a forest today. But it might be a forest that's a little different from the ones that we see on land. So we're going to investigate together about the world around us underwater and try and learn more about how we're connected to the ocean. So to do that, to my friends at the Sea Center, I want you to think about, when you think of a forest on land, what's the first word that comes to your mind? And Kennedy, if you want to see if there's any kids raising their hands and find a single answer for us.
All right, so I'm going to call on one person to share what they think of when they see or hear forest on land. Okay, say your answer quick. And the answer is
Wild.
wild.
Oh, that's a great answer. Yeah. Often when I'm hiking in the forest on land, I feel like I'm in a wild place for sure. And I get that same sense underwater here in Anacapa Landing Cove. What else, Kennedy? Do we have any other answers?
Do we have any others? In the back of And the answer is
Animals.
animals.
Oh yeah, that's a great answer too. And we're going to find a few more answers here, a few more animals rather, in Anacapa Landing Cove and talk about how we are connected to them. What about one more, Kennedy? One more thing when we think of a forest, what comes to mind?
One thing we think of when a forest comes to our mind. Okay, ready? And the answer is
Tall trees.
Oh, tall trees. Yeah, for sure. Some of my favorite forests are up in Central California in the redwoods, some of the tallest trees in the world. And here, underwater at Anacapa Landing Cove, we're in a forest too. You might have noticed this organism to my right that looks a little bit like a tree, but also looks a little bit different. Well, I'm surrounded by a forest made of algae underwater. And this particular algae is a species called giant kelp. which is a huge species of algae that can grow really tall. And even though they're not plants like trees, they're kind of similar and also kind of different in some ways. We could explore together what it's like in this forest of algae. Right here, we have a structure of the kelp called a blade. Just like forests of trees on land, these underwater algae forests photosynthesize, or they take in sunlight and carbon dioxide and release oxygen. It helps them grow, and it also helps us all breathe. So they're a lot like forests on land in that way. But also, we're underwater. We're moving back and forth, being pushed by currents. And so the kelp had to adapt too. Kelp has these flexible and bendy stipes, which is a fancy word for what's almost like the trunk of a tree. But instead of being hard and solid, they can move back and forth and flow with the ocean. And they also need to reach the surface of the ocean in order to take in the most sunlight. So they've got these little gas-filled bladders. I like to call them air pods. Although I'm not hearing any music coming out of them right now. The fancy word is pneumaticist. And they help the kelp float and reach the surface to get that sunlight that it needs to grow. So they're also a little different from trees because they're living in a different environment. And the way that they stay connected to the environment underneath them, they've got a very special adaptation here called a hold fast. As our cameraman Scotty is going to get a little closer here. Holdfasts are a lot like the root systems of a tree. They help the kelp anchor themselves to the ocean floor. So that the kelp doesn't drift away in any of the hot currents. Also connected to this kelp, just like it's connected to the ocean's floor. Because like I mentioned earlier, kelp helps produce the oxygen that we're breathing. In fact, kelp and other algae that live in the ocean, which are much smaller, produce half of the oxygen in our atmosphere and in our ocean. So every breath we take, we have half of that to thank kelp for. So let's demonstrate that today. On the count of three, I'll count it out. Let's all take a deep breath together and then say, thanks for the help, kelp. Are you ready, Kennedy? Are you ready, Bethany?
You ready?
We're ready.
We're ready.
Awesome. Let's give it a try. I'm going to do it with you. So 1, 2, 3. I hear you loud and clear. That is awesome to see. So we just demonstrated how we are connected to the kelp forest and how it's connected to us by producing a lot of the air that we breathe. But kelp also creates habitat and food for many other marine species that live in the kelp forest. In fact, over 1,000 different species of animals are connected to the kelp. And my friend Claire is going to bring over one of them to take a look at now. This is one of my favorite species that you can find in the kelp forest. This is called an urchin. It's a species of urchin called a red urchin. And urchins are a native species in the kelp forest. They belong here. Urchins are these spiky little animals. And if you look closely in between the spikes, you can see that they've got little tube feet that are waving around. Those are called podia that help the urchin grab onto things and move around in this ocean environment. On the underside, you can really see them waving. Urchins are echinoderms, which is a group of animals, literally it means spiky skin. It includes sea stars and others that we'll find in these ocean environments. And urchins belong in the kelp forest. They like to eat kelp. Usually in a healthy kelp forest, where there's lots of predators to help keep the urchin populations lower and in check, they're hiding in the rocky reef. They don't want us to find them. It took us a while to be able to dig out this urchin for this program. And they nibble on drift kelp as it passes by. So we're going to let this one have a good rest of his day off camera. And my friend Claire is going to bring us another animal. Now this is a weird alien looking animal that we'll find in the kelp forest. You can see it's almost spongy like body. Kennedy, do any of the kids at the Sea Center have a guess of what kind of animal I'm holding up here?
What do you think? The answer is
A sea snail?
Oh, that's a really good guess. Yeah. There's a number of kinds of sea snails that we do find here in the park. This little guy looks a lot like a sea snail. This is a sea cucumber. Sea cucumbers, just like the urchin we saw, are part of that family of echinoderms. Echinoderms is a really big group of animals that all look and act differently. Sea cucumbers, like this warty sea cucumber that I have here, also live in the kelp forest. They also belong here. Sea cucumbers will both munch on bits of material at the bottom of the ocean, kind of like worms in the dirt on land, and they'll also eat really small prey as well. They help decompose all different algae and other organic materials out here. And they also won't pass up a small little tasty snack if they find a small animal nearby. They've also got a really cool adaptation that they've evolved. If they get scared by a predator that's coming up near them, sea cucumbers can spit out their guts. They can get rid of and expel their internal organs as a way to ward off the predator and stay safe. So they've evolved in this kelp forest environment to help decompose lots of the algae around them, as well as to be predators. And I've got one more animal here, which I'm really excited about, that is connected to the kelp forest. Right now, in my hands, I'm holding what looks like a fragile rainbow star, which is actually a pretty rare species to find in Inaccessible Landing Cove. We were really excited when Claire from Channel Islands National Marine Sanctuary found this for us earlier. Fragile rainbow stars are also echinoderms. They're also that family that means spiky skin. They're a sea star. And on the bottom of them, you can see what they have in common with the other animal we saw earlier, the purple urchin. They've got lots of podia, or little tube feet, that help them move around and crawl through the ocean environment. Sea stars, like the one I'm holding here, are really important to kelp forest ecosystems. This particular star is a predator. It likes to eat brittle stars, chitons, snails, tiny crabs, and it can move around pretty quickly compared to some of the prey that it eats. And as predators, they help keep the populations of their prey in check. Another species of sea star that we won't find in the landing cove, the sunflower star, was a predator of the urchin that we saw earlier. Unfortunately, they all turned into glue about 10 years ago due to disease, as did many other species. So it's really awesome that we got to find this sea star in Landing Cove today, because it's a pretty rare one for us to be able to see here. I'm going to pass this back to my friend Claire. Now there's one more species of animal that we can take a look at here. So our cameraman Scotty is going to go show a couple of these animals and the rock that they're currently living on. And we're going to talk about how they are connected to the kelp too. While we're headed in that direction, Kennedy, do we have any questions from any of our members of our school group at the Sea Center today?
Let's see. Emily, can you come up this way a little bit? And the question is,
What's that pink stuff?
what is the pink stuff?
Oh, that's a great question. So right now, Scotty, our marine ecologist, is looking at a rock wall here covered in different organisms. Some of them are red algae, which are looking a little pink. They're growing on the side of these rocks in the forest of kelp. And one of the animals that we can now see on the camera is also kind of pink. This is a pink abalone, or a species of marine snail. Abalone used to be really common across California. But due to overfishing, due to how humans are connected to the kelp forest, because we like to eat these abalone, their populations have been greatly reduced. And humans have always been connected to the abalone and to the kelp forest here in California. Right now, we are scuba diving and swimming in the traditional territory of the Chumash people. Chumash are the indigenous people who have always been connected to Channel Islands National Park. And they've always been connected to the abalone and to the many other marine species that you'll find here in what is now Channel Islands National Park, including today. And today as well, abalone are a big component of California's culture. And right now at the Santa Barbara Sea Center, you can see a critically endangered species of abalone called the white abalone in some of their displays. But here, we're at a slightly less endangered species of abalone that we're taking a look at. A marine snail that likes to munch on kelp. Because we're in a marine reserve, we're in a healthy kelp forest. We have awesome healthy populations of abalone like this pink abalone here. We're going to offer it a little bit of food here as well. Every time I see an abalone in the park, I like to give it a little meal just to make sure that they're staying well fed. Because abalone and other marine species are really important, and our kelp forests are so important and connected to all facets of our life, including the air we breathe. Here at the park in the sanctuary, we monitor our forest. We have a team of divers called our Kelp Forest Monitoring Program. And they check in on how healthy our kelp forests are and how they're doing. And they look at species like the sheephead that you see behind us, which is a predator in the kelp forest and also likes to eat those urchins. And they see how abundant the fish are. They see how many of them are around, how healthy our kelp is. And that helps us take action when we need to. Species like that sea cucumber that we saw earlier were disappearing. And so in the early 2000s, the state of California established these reserves or areas of the park underwater where you can't fish for anything to allow the sea cucumbers to recover, the sheephead that we just saw to recover, and to maintain that connection to the kelp forest around us. So in that way, not only is the kelp connected to us by providing us the air we breathe, by helping to keep our coastlines from eroding, we are also connected to the kelp because our actions can impact the kelp. So I want to ask all the kids at the Sea Center today, how do you think you are connected to the kelp? How can you help the kelp and help protect our oceans?
All right, you have a quick idea? And the answer is
Clean.
clean.
Cleaning, yeah. Cleaning is a great way for us to help keep our beaches and our oceans healthy. Underwater here, sometimes we find bits of garbage or trash called marine debris that came from people and ended up in the ocean. And so there are teams, including by a university called California State University Channel Islands, that study how much marine debris washes up on our beaches.
Ranger
And also
Ravane.
lead drives to collect them. But the best thing we can do to keep trash from getting in the ocean is to make sure that we're reducing the amount of trash we create and recycling when we can and disposing of our waste properly. So the more we can reuse and reduce the things we have, the less of them become marine debris later. So that's a great question. Kennedy, do we have time for one other answer of how we can help the kelp?
We'll have one more.
Ranger Ravane, when you get a chance, the visitor center, we have lots of families who might have an answer as well. But we'll go to the Sea Center first.
Yep, we're coming to the visitor center afterwards, Bonnie.
Thank you.
And the answer is
To give it water.
give it water.
Give it water. Well, luckily here in the kelp forest, we are surrounded in an ocean environment. So it's important that not only do we have water for the kelp to grow in, but also have things like oxygen, because even the kelp underwater is producing oxygen. There's animals that live in it that need oxygen too, that they take in through their gills. So they need water, and you also need gases like oxygen and other nutrients. Now let's shift over to the visitor center, auditorium, and Ranger Bonnie. Bonnie, are there any families in the auditorium that have answers of how we can help the kelp?
We're looking for an answer on how we can help protect the kelp. Any answers? I'm looking for an answer on how we can help protect the kelp. I'm looking for an answer. Here is the answer.
Support your national parks, especially Channel Islands.
Yeah, so Channel Islands National Park and Channel Islands National Marine Sanctuary are really special because half of our park is actually underwater and overlaps with the sanctuary. So by supporting our national parks, by visiting them, by learning more about these ocean environments, we can all learn better how to protect them. That's a great answer. So we've talked today about how I'm connected to you on the mainland because of the kelp forest environment that we're in and how every facet of our life, from the air we breathe to the fisheries and ecotourism that come from the kelp forest, is impacted by these marine ecosystems. How we are connected to the kelp and how the kelp is connected to us. So I want everyone in the audience today to think about, as we're leaving this program, what are other ways that we can help the kelp and remain connected to our marine environment? So thank you all very much for joining us today at the Sea Center and at the Visitor Center for this program. We do have a little time on our end, Kennedy and Bonnie, if you have time on your end for a few general questions from the audience. What do you think?
This is a visitor center. We definitely have some time.
Awesome. Kennedy, does that work for you?
We have time.
Great, thank you. Let's start with the visitor center. Bonnie, do we have any questions from our audience?
We have one question, and the question is,
What do sea cucumbers eat?
Well, that was a really good question. What do sea cucumbers eat? And the answer is a lot of things. Sea cucumbers are really special animals because they're both decomposers, which means they like to snack on little bits of algae or other plants, animals, organisms that you might find down here in the ocean and help decompose them and keep the rocky reef below us healthy. And they also like to eat little small animals that they find along the way. So perhaps tiny little invertebrates, which are animals that don't have backbones, or any small little creature that they can opportunistically pounce on. Kennedy, do we have any questions from the Sea Center?
We have one question. And the question is,
What do starfishes eat?
Oh, that's a really good question, too. So sea stars, like the one that we saw earlier, are perhaps my favorite kind of animal that you find in the kelp forest. And there's so many different species of sea stars. The one that we saw earlier today was pretty special. But we also have stars called bat stars, ochre stars, giant spine stars. Many different species can be found in the kelp forest. And they eat slightly different things. They're really good predators. They can actually spit their stomachs out of their body and start digesting their prey on the outside. Larger stars, like sunflower stars, can even swallow an urchin whole. And so sunflower stars eat many different kinds of prey, but they're really good at eating urchins and helping to be guardians of our kelp forest by eating urchins and keeping the urchins from eating too much kelp. So in a healthy kelp forest, we need the grazers like the urchins and predators like sunflower stars. Kennedy, do you have any more questions from the Sea Center?
London, do you want to go? We have one last question. And the question is,
How does cucumbers eat?
how do the sea cucumbers eat?
Sea cucumbers are very popular today. Sea cucumbers eat by crawling along the ocean floor. So the one that we saw earlier, I was picking it up into the water column, but normally you'll find them attached to the rocky reef around them. So they'll move and kind of graze and help decompose a lot of the food that they might find on the seafloor rather than floating out freely in the water. Bonnie, do we have any last questions from the visitor center?
I'm looking for a question at the visitor center. We have a question, and the question is,
Have you seen an octopus?
Oh, that's a great question. And we might be able to show you the answer to that one, actually. So earlier today, when we were looking by these abalone, there's a tiny little octopus that was tucked away underneath this rock, and it's actually still there. It's going to be really hard, I'm warning you, to see it on camera. But we can at least show you the hole that it was staying in. So right next to this pink abalone, there is a small octopus hanging out under here. Octopus really like to hide, especially during the day when they're not hunting. But right underneath that rock, I saw one about 10 minutes ago. All right. Thank you both very much at the Sea Center and at the Visitor Center for connecting with me today and learning more about our kelp forest environment and how we are one with the kelp.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, and I look forward to talking to you soon during our next broadcast.